Glad to see that you came out, whether you're here as a participant or as an observer. We're glad to have you. And I'll say this, our Chairman Streeter, is doing well. He's just not able to be here, so he sends his regards. At this time, I will call on Ms. Lula Jackson, our Department of Social Services Director, for the invocation.
Good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
Let us pray. God of grace, God of mercy, God of love and God of peace, God of wisdom and God of knowledge, please grant unto us tonight your precious gifts, that we may go forth, do your will, do things that edify people, edify your community, edify your world. Bless those that stand in need of healing, unity, and peace. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, at this point, we're ready for the approval of the agenda. Hope everybody's had a chance to look through it. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move it be approved.
We have a motion from Dr. Sims, second from Commissioner Sturman to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor, let it know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Okay, motion carries unanimously. The agenda is approved. Okay, the consent agenda consists of item A, the minutes from our August the 4th meeting, property tax refunds and adjustments, the Sand Hill Center quarterly report, and the staff was not able to answer any questions about that, so if any commissioners have any questions, get with Mr. Garner, and then he will contact Sand Hills to get an answer for you. Item D is the budget amendment for the Health Department, number 543 ELC. Item E is also a budget amendment for the Health Department, number 403 WIC. And item F is the Health Department fee increase request, and that is on page 52.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Gatewood, seconded by Dr. Sims, and I believe also Commissioner Sturtevant. Any discussion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Okay, the motion to approve the consent agenda carries unanimously. So we'll move on to appearances. Item 3, 3A is Mr. Lewis Evans from the Tourism Development Authority. That's on page 56. And actually, I think this is just information.
Thank you, everybody. It's good to be with you here again tonight. We've got a special guest with us, my Vice Chair of the Chamber, Melanie Conti. She's my right hand, my left hand, and all the time count on her, so I'm glad to have her here. So we're going to give you a brief report tonight. We'll talk about our 2020-21 budget that was approved by our board, and then we'll do a brief recap of some of the things we did in 2020. We're not going to go into all of the details of every little project, every little thing that we approved and we funded last year. But if any of you do want to know some fine details on it, we can see me after the meeting or call me and I'll give you some details, because we've got real good reports on that. So we'll try to respect your time, because it looks like you've got a pretty good schedule. If you'll take a look, I think Denise included in your packet our budget for 2020 and 21. And of course, you'll see a couple things at the top of the budget. They are kind of fixed expenses, the contract with the chamber, and of course the visitor center rent. And again, those are things we have to do, and that's what we do and we count on. But the fixed expenses are one thing. But an old Northeastern North Carolina saying used to be, but here's where the rubber hits the road. The next couple things you'll see on the, well actually it's all combined, talks about advertising, marketing, and local events. That's where we try to promote tourism, and tourism equals economic development. As you all know, tourism is a great economic driver, not only for the state of North Carolina, but for the United States and the whole world. People love traveling and seeing things. And we certainly try to use that here in Anson County, to promote tourism. So, there are a couple of things that we did do in 2019 and 20. We'll just recap those real briefly, and then we'll give you a chance to answer questions if you need to. If you remember last year when we met, we talked about the two billboards that were put up on the east side of Waynesboro, and the west side of Highway 74. They were installed in 2018, and we gave you plans in, and we're going to put up another in 2019. The good news is that did get installed in 2019. So that billboard is a welcome to Anson County, again trying to promote tourism, which again is an economic driver. And it's on the left side of Highway 52, traveling toward Waynesboro between McFarland and Morgan. Great looking billboard, and it kind of tells a good story. So that was another one of our plans that came true, and we were glad to see that done. Another thing I think we talked about it last year. We were going to install an interactive kiosk in the visitor center. And you know, we were in the planning stage at that point in time, but it became a reality. So Melanie is going to share some exciting news about our kiosk that's in the Welcome Center.
First of all, I want to say thank you for having us, and I want you to take a moment, not just you, but everyone who has not gone by the Speckled Paw Rev building, to go in and realize that it's not just Speckled Paw and Rev, it is also Anson County's Visitor Center. And in that Visitor Center, we have the interactive kiosk where strangers, friends, everyone is welcome to come in during the hours that it's open and peruse through it and see not only where there are restaurants in the area, but the activities in the area. There are some activities in the area of Anson County, even though a lot of people don't seem to think so. The kiosk is not the way we would like it, in the sense that when COVID hit, we were in the middle of getting together as our group and going to the individual places and events that are listed on there and getting computer quality photos to go in. And that is our only thing that we have on our schedule for 2021. And that isn't going to cost us a penny because the group of us are going to do it individually, splitting up the list and going to the places to do it. But I'd like for you to go by and see what it looks like now, so you can see what it looks like when it's absolutely up and ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. See, I told you, that's the right hand and the left hand both. We accomplished a lot together, and like we were talking a few minutes before the meeting, and we came up with another good idea. And I told Melanie again, I said, you know, the good thing about it, whenever we communicate, whatever we're talking about, it never fails what we don't come up with another idea or either solve an existing situation that we have. So, big asset. Thank you, Melanie. Like I said, we've got that third billboard done. We're not finished planning. We've got some other things, hopefully, for the north side, but we're not sure exactly when that's going to happen. There's some things that our manager, Barron, is working on getting some zoning done in our county, and that'll be a big help to us. In order to even get a billboard up, it has to be zoned properly, and to get what we want on the north side going on 52. There were, I believe, 4 properties, a potential 5th property that's zoned properly that we could put a billboard on. None of those 5 properties were what I would consider prime that will jump out at you, that will be a good showcase. One of them was acceptable, but, you know, things like zoning, sometimes people don't realize how important that really is. So that's something we're looking at, but we gotta get things, put in place before that's gonna work. There's, you know, so many opportunities, and we've got the ability to do it as time goes. There's one other thing, Melanie, I think I want to share with you that, we talked about before we got here tonight, about Leah.
I just wanted to take a moment to thank Baron and Carrie for sending Liam to us. He has been, Liam Brayley, he's here for the fellowship, and he has been a welcome addition to our group. And we realize that his fellowship isn't forever, but we would like to ask the board to consider sending someone else to be a part of the TDA. Having that extra voice, having another person to bounce things off of, and to give us some guidance from your perspective has proved helpful, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
See, I told you, she comes up with more good stuff than you can even think of. That's about all the time we're gonna take with you tonight. If you have any questions or comments, we'll be glad to take it. But again, if anybody's got some more details you wanna know about our year, let us know and we'll be glad to answer. Any questions or comments?
Any questions, comments from any of the commissioners?
If not, thank you for letting us be here with you tonight.
We thank you, Mr. Evans and Ms. Conte, for your report, and we appreciate all that you're doing for Anson County.
Thank you. We're gonna be excused if that's okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, and right now I need to apologize to the board and point out my oversight, and hopefully I hadn't caused any problems for any commissioners here tonight, but I failed to make the ethics statement. So in accordance with the State Government's Ethics Act, General Statute 138A, it is the duty of every board member to avoid both conflicts of interest and appearances of conflict. Does any board member have any known conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matter coming before the board? If so, please identify the conflict and refrain from an undue participation in a particular matter involved. Okay, hearing none, we're good to go. Okay, that brings us down to item 3B, Mr. Adam Johnson, present use affidavit, and that's found on page 58 in our packet. I think also Mr. Newton gave us some information to go along with that as well.
All right, well, I want to first thank the board for giving me the chance to come address you this afternoon, or this evening, and especially want to thank Ms. Cannon, because without her, I know I said earlier today, I would not have had any idea how to actually get myself on the agenda, so I really do appreciate her help. To give you a really quick summary of what I'm asking for. North Carolina, as I'm sure most of you know, has a farm tax program which allows active farms to be taxed at a lower rate than commercial property or other commercial or industrial property of the same size. This particular issue involves a turkey farm which has been operating on McSwain Road here in Anson County for a number of years now. The property was originally owned, without getting into names, I know it's public record what's on there, but we'll just say owner number one operated the turkey farm, had it placed in the farm use deferment program. At some point that property had to be transferred out of his name into owner number two. Owner number two was holding the property until everybody in the family could decide exactly what was going to happen. So now a third person, owner number three, who's going to continue to operate it as a farm, has come on board and is interested in taking the property. Now, I told you that originally owner number one had the property in the farm tax program. Well, when that property was transferred to owner number two, the application to continue in the farm use program was not filed at that time. So North Carolina law, which if for anybody's reference, if they care to look it up, is chapter 105-section 277.4. Gives us two ways that a property can continue on in the farm tax program. The first is at the same time the new deed is recorded with the Register of Deeds, that application is filed with the tax office and everything's good. The second avenue is if it is not filed concurrent with the recording of the deed, it can be filed at any point later, at any time during the year, with the Board of Equalization and Review. But if the Board of Equalization and Review was not meeting, then it has to be brought before the county commissioners for acceptance and approval. I know I spoke to Mr. Newton earlier in the year, this was around April, when we first started trying to get this whole thing switched over to the most recent owner, to owner number 3, who will be the owner at some point. At that point, my intention was to put it before the Board of Equalization and Review for their review and acceptance of the application. But unfortunately, I think we were a little late when my client came to see me. We were just about a week short of that meeting. So that was mid-April. The meeting was on April 28th. The board only meets once per year and will not meet again before the end of the calendar year. And because of tax consequences, this has to be accepted sometime before December 31st, sometime in the calendar year for the taxes that we're dealing with. So unfortunately, the only route to have this farm continue on in the farm tax program is to bring it before the board and ask the board to accept the application at this time. Normally, it would have been something that would have been done back in April, hopefully with the Board of Equalization, but I'm sure you guys have had more struggles with COVID than I have. Things were not open, things were not available, and when I learned that the board was actually taking public meetings again, that's the reason it's being brought now. If anybody has any more questions about it, I'm more than happy to go through it. I don't want to bore you with all the details and minutiae of the case, but I'm absolutely more than happy to answer any questions.
And the land will be used for farmland.
It will be, yes ma'am. It was originally a turkey farm. My understanding is they're going to attempt to continue it on as a turkey farm. The area around the turkey houses have been added into an existing cow pasture so that there'll be cattle grazing there as well. And so for this particular tax benefit, a property has to be used for one of 3 things. One is an operating farm, which a turkey farm does count for that. 2, for grazing land, open land for some kind of livestock, which the cows qualify for that, or open land or a tree farm. There is no intention on the part of anybody, especially not the owner now, to build anything else there. They want to continue to use it as a farm, as an active farm.
If somebody else have a question first?
I'll just tell him, Mr. Sykes, that's his road.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Even though you said, unfortunately, we got to bring it before the commissioners, we are good group. I mean, gosh.
Oh, I think you're all great people. I was just saying, unfortunately, because I have to burden you with my work.
I wanna make a motion that we, I'm sorry, somebody else.
Excuse me, Commissioner Sturman, I think, before you make the motion, we need to hear from Mr. Newton, this information he gave us. I think we need to let him explain the ins and outs of this particular situation.
Absolutely.
Based on what, Mr. Johnson was saying. I think the only thing we can deal with is actually this year, but I'll let Mr. Newton explain that.
Commissioners, I have reviewed this property, researched it back to actually several years ago. Mr. Thomas Emmerich was the owner at the time it was in the farm program. He sold it to Thomas Development of the Carolinas. And I had not been on the property until last Friday. But what I found out when I went out there is that it is no longer operating as a farm. And that actually, I have the business form here where actually Mr. Emmerich actually closed the farm some years ago and hasn't listed any equipment nor any assets to the farm at all. So I initially thought that when Thomas Development of the Carolinas bought it, that they did file an affidavit to keep it in the farm, but they never then followed it up with an application. But the problem with that is that that's not really where the break happened at in the farm program to continue it. It happened back when Thomas Emmerich had it, and he pulled it out of the farm. And when I was out there on Friday, you have pictures of the facility, and you can see that it's been pretty much dismantled on page 5. So really, there was nothing for Thomas Development to assume when the farm had already been dismantled. So there's not continuity in that chain coming forward to where we're at here today. Now, this doesn't mean that it can't get back in the farm at some point. But right now, an application or an affidavit won't cure it. It's gonna have to be applied for separately and by the current owner that now has it. So the tax office is not recommending the approval of an untimely application because we don't believe that it applies to this situation. The earliest, see, in order to stay in the farm program, has to be an active farm, has to be a production type farm, and actually producing an income. And in my opinion, this farm is not qualified under those parameters. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have, but that's kind of where we're at, you know, in this situation.
Okay. Any questions from any commissioners? So, Mr. Newton, the recommendation from the
Yes.
tax office is that they're.
I'd like to ask a question if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
Mr. Newton, how do you know that it does not produce income?
I know because it's been shut down because there's been no business forms or assets listed with the county for something like 5 years.
And listing those is one of the requirements of qualifying?
Well, that shows that it's an active farm, that there's equipment there being used to run the farm.
The pictures and the information you gave us before the meeting started, this is what you did on Friday.
Yes, on
Okay.
Friday, in other
Okay.
words, and I initially thought that
Not
it
in our
was,
packet.
and I initially thought that Thomas Development is the ones that dropped the continuity of the farm, but it wasn't. It was Mr. Emmerich back prior to them even buying it. It would have done no good for them to have filed an application because there was nothing there to assume. Now, the tax bills that are out there, they're deferred tax bills that go back 3 years plus current. They are bona fide tax bills that are sanctioned by the Department of Revenue when a farm or something of this nature, trees, farm, anything comes out of their program. There's what they call a rollback that picks up 3 years and comes forward. Those are good bills. They remain with that parcel and they will continue to stay with it with the current owner, the next owner, and the next owner until they're paid. Any other questions?
And if I could, I'd like to address a couple of those points.
Go right ahead.
As far as with those bills staying with the current owner going forward, I do agree with that those bills will attach unless something happens to it. that is the reason we are not able to transfer from owner 2 to owner 3, which, if you look at the paperwork, is the grandson of owner number 1 who wanted to take over the property. Because there are outstanding taxes, my understanding is the deed cannot be recorded while there are outstanding taxes. So I think it's a situation of, you know, no good deed goes unpunished. Not punished by this board or punished by the tax office at all. I think it's just an unfortunate situation. I was not aware of any change in the use of the property, but what I will say is that the statute that creates this tax deferment says that there are 3 general categories. There's horticultural, agricultural, and something else that I don't remember off the top of my head. And in my experience, that does include open land for grazing, land that will be used for a tree farm or an active farm, which was what it was at the prior time when it was owned by the original owner. As far as whether or not some change happened back when the original owner had the property, I don't disagree that the tax office has the right to go back and review that at any point and make a determination which can then be appealed and go up the correct process. Unfortunately, for what we're here for right now is just whether an application can be filed. Now, if that application is accepted by the board, then the tax office is 100% more than they have all the power and all the control over that in the world to come in and say, well, it doesn't look like it's continued on with this program, so now we're going to reset it. And that was something that then we would appeal through the proper process. And I'm not saying anything to step on Mr. Newton's toes. I hope I'm not at all. I would hope and I would ask that we would go through the right process so that I could guide my client as we go the right way. What I don't want to happen is this young man tries to take over the land, wants to use it as pasture land or whatever he decides to do with it, and get stuck with, and somebody along the line gets stuck with the tax bill that we're not able to appeal because of the process. I did print out a couple more things that I just realized as I was talking was not in the packet I gave you. The first one is a copy of the statute, but I believe that's the same thing Mr. Newton gave you and highlighted. And paragraph A1 was what I was using. The other is chapter 1 of the present use guide program, which is the farm tax deferment. I only printed chapter 1 because in total this was 168 pages, and I didn't think that anybody on the board would care to look at things that weren't relevant here. And so basically section number 1 there on page 3 does say that there are 3 classifications for a present use for a farm tax deferment: agricultural land, horticultural land, and forest land. I would just put it to the board that those are all 3 appropriate uses for the land, but more importantly, I believe that it would be, the appropriate process would be for the tax office to later do their periodic review that they can make at any time and change their decision on what it is at that time. Thank you.
The property can be transferred even today. We have a resolution in place that says there can be no delinquent taxes, in other words, owed for the transfer of a piece of property. This property can be transferred to a new owner today or next week or whenever, all the way up to January the 6th of 2021, because none of those taxes are delinquent, which is the stop for it, in other words, at that point. So the property can transfer. There's no problem with transferring it. It's the taxes, in other words, that's creating the problem for the transfer. But they're not going away. They're not delinquent until January the 6th, and they will not stop the transfer of this property if this new owner wants it. And I'm not saying that the owner that is purchasing it wouldn't have the right to go back and collect these taxes from whoever created that breach, in other words, that created these bills that took it out of the farm. But I doubt there'd be very little success with that. And that's not a tax issue, that's an ownership issue.
Mr. Newton, if it's all right presented in open session here, how much money are we talking about in taxes versus farm versus now?
the total tax bill on it right now, counting all deferred bills, is around $4,000. Is what the tax bills are now. 2020 was taxed at full value. It fell out, in other words, and we went back and recapped the last 3 years. They're just billing now for the deferred part of those tax bills. Like if it's 70/30, in other words, we're not billing for the whole years that are back, that are deferred, just the part that they got the benefit of. I still, you know, our recommendation from the tax office is not to approve it. We think that, in other words, that the farm program was canceled years ago. We would have called it in an audit coming up anyway, and so it's now we're having to deal with it.
In other words, you're telling us not to pass this, so.
That's right. Now, he's correct when you've got poultry, when you've got agriculture, when you got forestry, but all that has to be active, producing, all except trees. Now, trees don't require any income on an annual basis. They're going to just stand there and grow. But there's no cattle out there that I've seen, and the poultry houses are falling in. In other words, they actually have collapsed in some places.
So, Mr. Newton and I guess the county attorney too, what I'm hearing is we're being told that not to approve it, even though it was said a few minutes ago we could actually approve the transfer because the taxes and none of that actually causes a problem there. But at the same time, so that whenever this transfer is made and whoever the property falls on, so everything is free and clear, what's the best course of action? Is that we not approve it and they get the taxes paid and then we move forward with it, or what? I'm looking for a suggestion now.
Well, you see, it's inoperative now, which
Understand.
automatically takes it out of the farm. It's not producing. It's
Okay.
not productive. It's just sitting there, and it's in disarray, and it's in ill repair. I don't see any evidence of any quote farm activities at this point on that property. Now, the new owners can apply for the farm program in January of 2021, and they can put it right back in the farm if they bring it up, in other words, to where it is a productive operation. So they're not barred from the farm for the next 3, 4, 5 years. They can get right back in the farm under the perimeters, in other words, that the state allows it, in January of 2021.
When they do some work to the chicken house.
When they do the, you know, if they want to
Okay.
fence it, if they want to put
Okay.
cattle on it, if they put the turkey houses back in operation. But I tell you, those turkey houses are 1983, and the possibility of them getting a contract from a grower, in other words, is very slim, because most of the poultry vendors this day are building houses instead of 400 feet long, they're 600 feet long. Those houses have posts in them, they're building them clear spanned, and it's very difficult to get a poultry contract this day in an old house, because they can get new ones built, in other words, because there's people out there standing in line to build them.
Isn't this just to see if they can, make the application and then it's up for review, or is this to bring the, current taxes back, or to revert the current taxes back to the farm program, deferred?
Deferred taxes will not go
They will
away.
not go away, okay.
They will not go away.
Okay.
Mr. Woodburn, I know you asked for suggestions as to what everybody thought. Obviously, if I'm overstepping my bounds, please tell me. My suggestion would just be that the reason we're here right now is to show whether the application could be accepted Whether or not the property continues or meets the requirements to continue in this, is a separate issue and would be, I think, more appropriate if the tax office decided to later do their review of the property after the application was accepted, have a hearing so that everybody could come in, present their sides of why they believe that the property still does qualify, and obviously the tax office can present exactly what they've said today as to why it does not qualify, and that determination could be made then. I just worry that we're putting the cart before the horse, because this today was supposed to be for whether or not an application could be accepted, not whether or not it would not qualify at some future date. And again, I apologize if I overstepped my bounds by stepping back up and talking.
Thank you.
There is nothing in allowing an application to come in to continue, in other words, a farm that has gone down, there's nothing to extend. The farm is gone. So you're applying for something that's not even there.
Okay, all right, thank you. Understand. Thank you all. Okay, what's the pleasure of the board at this time?
Mr. Woodburn, I had started to make a motion because the only thing we received, in our packet was the deed. And in reading over the deed, Mr. Johnson, I am all for people starting a new business. When we got here this afternoon, Mr. Newton had laid this other information here. I was reading over something else, I hadn't looked at it. There's no way with these pictures they can get this up to par. There's no way that, and what he said about, what the new chicken houses is and the footage on them and, stuff, I'm gonna withdraw what I was getting ready to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Woodburn, may I ask one question, please, just for clarification for the board?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Newton, if someone walks in off the street and puts an application in, do they have a right to put the application in? Even if they don't believe that, even if it's not going to qualify later on, don't they have the right to put the application in? That's what I'm concerned with here, is that Mr. Johnson's asked for the application to be approved to put in because there's two measures, one with the Board of Equalization, and then one, he can come here if he doesn't go there. This is just for the application process for y'all to review it, or am I misunderstanding something?
I think the tax office has done due diligence in bringing the report that we brought, and that there's nothing to apply for from this point forward. That farm has been out of business for 5 years. Now, I understand what you're saying. In other words, that do they still have the right to apply? What's the use? In other words, I can tell you right now, based on an application today that would come in, not because I want to turn it down, but by general statute in the Department of Revenue, we would have to turn it down. So why just prolong the process?
And they can go before the Board of Equalization in January?
No, ma'am. So this will be the end of this. This is the last board of review for this particular issue. What will have to happen is the newest landowner, the young man who wants to buy the property, is gonna have to go get, an entire business plan set up everything as if he was applying fresh from the very beginning. And that was a cost we were trying to avoid for him, because it would, if we could have continued it as it was, and even if the tax office decided that they wanted to later do their periodic review and find that it did not qualify, we will be entitled to some kind of hearing and appeals process at that point to argue and bring in the information about the money being used, or the annual income and all of that to be brought in at that point. Now I do apologize for not having all that with me. I wasn't expecting this to be the argument that was going to be made. But no, ma'am. So as far as can they come back later before some other board, only on an entirely new issue. The question of whether or not this can be accepted and whether or not the taxes, there's a separate tax issue which would come up later as far as how many years back the taxes goes and all of that. That would only be something that could be brought up in this particular issue, not something if they come back in January. So if this is denied, no ma'am, they would not be able to bring this issue back.
Oh, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically, what I'm hearing and what I'm understanding is, right now, as far as the application, there's really nothing to apply for because it's not really in existence as far as an operation is concerned. And the second thing is the person that is wanting to buy it has to get it into operation. So, would it not make sense to come back with that application at the point in time the new owner has done whatever it is they need to do to get it in operation so that they're actually doing a valid application? Does that make sense?
I think I understand what you're saying, Mr. Woodburn. And I think we're looking at things from we're looking at the same issue from two different angles. And I think that, my recommendation and my belief in bringing this was that even if there was an issue later on where it was not going to be continued in the farm use, that would be something that would be addressed at that point. At this point, it was an application, this is not a new application.
Right.
This is an application to continue the prior status on through until the board, reviews, until the tax office reviews it at their periodic review, that, the normal statutory process is that when you transfer a property, you file the application, it's automatically done, the status continues until there's some kind of periodic review. The only difference being if it drops out on its own, then all the prior taxes all get added on now, whereas if it's dropped after a review by the tax office at a future point, the landowner has the opportunity to come in and say, no, I understand your points, but this is why it still qualifies. And so my reasoning for doing this is to give the landowner the due process to come in at some future point and have their say on why it is still a farm. And if that's something that the board wants to continue to a future date to get more information on that, I'm more than happy to give the board the time, and we can get together whatever information you need. I don't want the board to make a decision they're not happy with, but I also don't expect the board to hold an issue open over multiple meetings just for me.
Mr. Attorney,
Yes, Your Honor.
would it make sense for you and the county manager, Mr. Newton, to continue to work with, Mr. Johnson to really get to the bottom of this and see what actually is required? Or do we just need to go ahead?
Whatever the pleasure of the board is on that.
From what it seems like, there's been, the continuity issue has been an issue in regards to the farm situation. If it's looked at 5 years ago that it was no longer a farm,
Right.
it was sold, and then in the selling of that property, it also was not renewed again. There were two separate situations in which it could have been renewed 5 years ago to maintain that chain of continuity, and then at the change of custody in December to earlier this year, it was also not sought again to place it back into it to keep it moving. Those are two separate times in which things were not done. Various different owners throughout the process. So there has been times in which that's been allowed to correct that. So I would feel the recommendation to not move forward with the application. But that's the pleasure of the board.
Well, the problem is that's being conclusory over the top of the application. He's here to apply. If it needs to get turned down later, that's what I understand, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
If it wants to get turned down later, that's fine, but at this point, it's just whether he has the right to make the application again. Whether it fails or passes in the future is something else. And I do believe the tax office has done a due diligence on that, but at this issue, I don't believe, from what I'm understanding, he's just asking for the application. If I misunderstood that, or if I misunderstand that, please tell me, but that's the process I believe we're in right now.
That is correct. That was the only motion I was making to the court, or to the board, was to file this application, not for any kind of review. And with respect to Mr. Monroe's point, I do not believe, and I just checked with Mr. Newton to make sure I wasn't wrong, it's not a situation where you need to reapply every year or every 5 years to have your property remain in the farm tax program. That's something that's just, it's done up until the point that the tax office does its periodic review and then makes its determination. It's not an annual or a 5-year or a once a decade application that you have to do, as far as I understand it. We've done that on our.
So he's right. But just remember, we're talking about a farm that has been closed, shut down, not in operation, gone. There's nothing to attach to.
For 5 years.
For 5 years. It's been a little over 5 years. And so no way has the continuity been brought forward to here this day. They have the right to start over again. And they don't even know whether they can get contracts on the poultry houses or not. So I think, in other words, that, I mean, we're talking about a process that's gonna go forward for some time to get this operation back up. I say, start over. Bring it into production, file for it, and then put it in the plan, put it in the program. There's just nothing to attach to. The farm was officially closed,
Okay.
shut down.
Okay.
I agree with you.
Okay, thank you all. At this point, what's the pleasure of the board? We need to take action, I believe. Get a motion?
I don't see anything we can do, we just not approve it until things get right.
So we need a motion to that effect, a motion to, not approve the request.
I'm moving not approve it.
I second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Sykes, seconded by Commissioner Gatewood, that we not approve the, request for present use affidavit, the application for present use affidavit. Any discussion? All in favor, let me know by sign of aye. All opposed, like sign. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, alright, that brings us down to item 3C, Mr. John Merritt, the Atlantic Gateway Business Park. This is an exciting time for Anson County.
Good evening, Commissioners. As we used to say when we took a long road trip, take one down, pass it around, please. We have some exciting news here tonight. This is something that I had discussed with the Commissioners in closed session at our last meeting. And this tonight will kind of serve as a public announcement of this. We are going to be launching a new business park. It's going to be called Atlantic Gateway Logistics Park here in Anson County, just east of Lylesville. This park is going to be a partnership between PD Electric Co-op, North Carolina Southeast, and Anson EDP. North Carolina Southeast commissioned an engineering study of this site to ensure that it indeed was a good site for industrial development. And the results of that engineering study are included there in your packet. Thomas & Hutton is an engineering firm. They're a national engineering firm. We worked with their Charlotte-based office. As you can see, they have created a plan which includes both the PD Electric headquarters, which we announced last month. You can see that is indicated there on the northern portion of the property, as well as potentially 7 additional buildings totaling about 800,000 square feet. At build out, and whenever we develop a business park like this, we assume about 20 years for build out. I personally think this one will build out a little quicker than that, but we're assuming about a 20-year build out period. When the park is built out, it will be about 300 people working there. It's going to produce somewhere between $3 and $5 million annually in property taxes. It's going to add about $11 million a year to the county's total payroll. So it's a very, very exciting thing. I won't go into any of the details there. As you can see, there's a master plan for the entire park. And then there is an individual plan for each of the proposed buildings. Those buildings range in size from about 66,000 square feet up to about 150,000 square feet. 2 of them would be rail served. Those are about the largest buildings we can get on the site because of the topography. Once you get into buildings that are much larger than that, you're going to have to do too much site work to get it flat to put up, you know, a 3 or 4 or 500,000 square foot building on it. But those are good sized buildings for the purposes that we're talking about, which are warehouse distribution and light manufacturing. PD Electric, for those of you who have not had a chance to be out that way, I know Commissioner Sturdivant gets out that way on a fairly regular basis. PD Electric has been clearing and doing site work at their site. They started that first of last month, and they will be continuing that through third quarter of 2021. I spoke with Donnie Spivey today, and he indicated they anticipate that they will be occupying that building sometime in the third quarter of 2021. As far as the other buildings go, we are going to be actively marketing this site with the cooperation of North Carolina Southeast, hoping to get some businesses in there, additional businesses in there as soon as possible. As you can see on the report, there are no issues with water. There's actually a 20-inch main on the north side and a 6-inch main on the south side. Gas is about 3/4 of a mile away. That's not a deal breaker for the types of applications we're talking about. The majority of logistics applications and light manufacturing do not require natural gas. If at some point it was required, we certainly could run a 3/4 mile gas line to get there, but I don't anticipate that's something we're going to have to do immediately. As we discussed in closed session last month, the kind of limiting factor right now is the sewer issue. We're going to have to run about 3 miles of sewer line and build a pump station at a cost of a little over $3 million. We anticipate getting that money in grants from a variety of sources, including North Carolina Rural Center, the Economic Development Administration, and possibly Golden Leaf. So we're working on that right now, working on our grant applications, and we hope to be able to get all or the vast majority of the money that we require through those grants. And we do hope to have that grant funding in place by middle of next year. So that's kind of where we are with that. And then finally, the last thing I wanted to mention is we are going to be coordinating with PD Electric and North Carolina Southeast a sign installation ceremony. We have a sign ordered from a sign company here. It's going to be a really nice sign that will announce that for everyone passing by. They have assured me that the installation date on that will be September 17th or 18th. I'm going to give them a few extra days just in case, but we're looking to have the sign unveiling on the 22nd, 23rd, or 24th, and we will get you an exact date and time on that as soon as we get a couple more responses from a couple more people on what time and date would be best for them. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have now regarding the Atlantic Gateway Logistics Park.
Okay. Questions from anyone?
I know it's 300 jobs, John. What type jobs we talking about? I'm in favor of this, by the way. I'm just curious.
Well, first of all, 300 jobs is an estimate that based on the square footage and the type of businesses, this would be a fairly typical number of jobs for each of these companies. They would primarily be jobs in material handling, forklift operators, pickers, packagers, shipping, perhaps truck driving, light manufacturing, welding, those types of applications. They would be good paying jobs. Certainly all of those, with perhaps the exception of the picking, would be a job that would pay in advance, more than the county's average wage rate. So they would be good jobs for the county.
You need a motion from us.
I don't need, no, this is informational at this point. I have promised the county manager that we will, that this is going to be a self-funding project, and that we are not going to require any funding from the county beyond what we get from you very generously in terms of the sales tax revenue that we receive. And that's where the majority of the funding for this is coming from, is from the sales tax money that the county commissioners provide for economic development. So, but we will not be asking you for any money to extend the sewer line. We won't be asking you for any money for site work or development or signage or anything along those lines. We are taking care of that out of our budget.
We need to say thank you to you, and say also, good job.
Well, I need to say thank you to you all. We nothing that's in here would have been possible if the county commissioners actually 4 years ago now, hadn't chosen to fund Anson Economic Development and move forward with these projects. You know, we had a business park out in the western part of the county that topographically wasn't going to work as a business park. It was going to take too much to flatten it. We were able to sell that piece of land, that 100 acres of land out by the landfill, to an organization who bought it at what I think was a pretty good price for us. And that money that we received for that has gone into this project as well. So, you know, really, it is your money. It's just not coming directly from your budget. So we thank you all for that, and you know, we're going to continue to work on this. I saw the first rendering today of the building that PD Electric is putting up, their new headquarters building, and I can tell you it is beautiful. That's something that we're going to be very proud of in this county, and I hope the other buildings that go up out there are going to do it justice and will also be very, very nice. So.
Mr. Merrick, this is really very good news for Anson County and the citizens of Anson County.
We had a survey among the board, I don't know, about a year ago, and we come up with our goals, and our number one goal was to foster economic development, and this is great.
Yes, it is.
Good job. And they are really moving some dirt down there.
They are. They wasted no time. They wasted no time. So, well, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Merrick, before you leave.
Yes, sir.
The last time you presented to the board, you mentioned Steve Wallace project.
Yes.
Renovation of the old shopping center on Highway 74 East.
Yes.
Could you give us a status report on where that project?
Yes, I absolutely can, and I do know from speaking to Steve. As a matter of fact, I spoke to him just this afternoon. He knew I was coming here tonight, and he had mentioned to me that he had spoken with a couple of you individually about the project. But Steve has purchased what I believe is known locally as the old Mini Mart.
Yes.
Out on Highway 74, a little bit east of town. He is completely renovating the buildings there. He has removed the roof. He has removed all the glass. He's replacing all the glass. He's replacing the roof. He's replacing the plumbing, the electric. He has a very substantial investment in that project out there. One of the limiting factors, very, very similar to the limiting factor at the Atlantic Gateway, is that sewer does not run out there. That area out there is on septic tank. And that really limits what he can do out there. And he's been working with me to try to get sewer, to try to get an extension of the sewer, which is within the town of Wadesboro. I've had some conversations with them, and we're working on some things. I think that eventually we're going to have to get we're going to have to hook Steve up with a private sector grant writer who's going to be able to get him access to some grants that I do not have access to. So that's kind of what we're working at right now. I had a fairly long conversation with him today. You know, he feels like he can get. I won't mention the specific name, but he feels like there's a restaurant that's interested in coming out there. He feels there's a retail outlet that's interested in coming out there, but they need sewer. So we're working with that on him. We've got a little ways to go on that, like I said. It would be a very significant, you know, the number that I came up with was about $750,000. I know that some people think that's a little bit low, that it's actually probably going to be more like $850,000 to $900,000, but somewhere in that range. And so we'll see how it goes. But that's where we are with it right now, and we are working and moving forward with Steve on that as he does work on the site out there and tries to bring that up to code.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Merrick. Okay, that brings us now to item 4, which is public addresses to the board. And we have some people that have signed up. I'd just like to remind everyone that the comments are limited to 3 minutes. So just keep that in mind. And I will call on Mr. Garrett Snopes.
Guys, give him a hand as he come forward. He opened up a business today. Yeah. Bring that little gentleman up here with you.
Little Mason?
Yeah, little Mason, come here.
Come on, son.
Yeah, look, he's gonna be his daddy. Come on.
Hi,
How y'all doing this evening? Thank you for having me. I'll be very quick. I was wanting to address the parking situation in Uptown Waysboro, specifically Rutherford Street, north and south ends. The parking lot across the street from my particular business, owned by Arms, from what I'm gathering, I hear they planning on putting some medical trailers in that parking lot, being used by like 10 different businesses on the street for, you know, decades. New to me. I don't know if you all was aware. And also on the south end as well, the Housing Authority has taken up that little small parking area on that end of the street. So, you know, gonna impact negatively at least 7-8 businesses on that street. And we was just wanting to, you know what kind of, you know, opening up could possibly be done in regards to the businesses there.
He's in the old Met record facility.
Waysboro have to do something about it, or
The town of Waysboro.
It's a city only
Triad
city.
Barber School, correct?
Yes, sir.
Triad.
Yes, sir. Tight Cuts as well. Awesome Touch Hair Salon. The new art gallery. Compassionate Home Care. All of those people use this parking lot across the street, adjacent to Arms. Say they moving medical trailers, they're gonna block the parking lot off. You know, all our businesses use that parking lot, have been forever. And then again, like I said, on the south end, the Housing Authority have an office there. They don't allow nobody to park in that parking lot either. And you know, the county government has 2 or 3 different parking lots that, you know, only accessible to government officials. I'm just wanting to know, you know, how, you know, entrepreneurs like myself, small business owners, how our customers or whatnot supposed to, you know, gain access to us.
And your students.
Correct.
Where
Gonna
they
be
will park every day.
potentially 20 of them.
Yeah, where they will park every day.
Yeah, right. And then once we start opening up to the general public, you know, where they, you know, ain't no busing system here.
Okay.
I think that's something that, you know, you all probably need to try to address.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Snooks, for
Thank you,
bringing
sir.
that to
Thank you.
our attention. And also, I'd just like to mention this time, the commissioners are expected not to comment on matters brought to the board during public comments or and to delay action or comment until staff has had an opportunity to research the subject matter and report necessary and relevant information to all members of the board. So we take it on as information, and we'll have the staff, managing staff, investigate and come up with a recommendation. Okay, Ms. Minnie Chambers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snooks.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, what I wanna know, have you all made any progress on that dog release law? We're tired of them dogs out there, I'm still having trouble with them. And if I may, I got 2 more people from the community out there, if they, be all right if they come too?
Did they come up there with you?
You, yes.
Bye.
Ma'am, could y'all speak just a little bit louder so that everybody up here can hear you?
Did you hear me? No, okay.
I'm on Union Creek, 74 Union Creek. Out now, we need some signs put up to slow them cars down before they be gonna hit somebody out there. And the cats, they still now. And the same dog she's talking about. But, some kids, when them kids go out in that road or something, them cars are shooting by. They could run over them kids. And the trash. Why do they come in and throw the trash outside the road? We also need a sign saying, you're gonna pay $100 if you throw this trash out here. But them signs need to be up to slow them cars down. On her road and my road. Them cars, they look like they're on the highway running. Them cars running so fast. I had to beat my little great grandboy. I was so scared he was gonna run out in that road. I said, child, didn't I tell you not to run out there? Ain't no telling when a car gonna zoop by now. And child be gone.
Thank you for letting us speak here today. There's still a problem out there with the animals. Some of the ladies want to walk out in the afternoon. And the other day I saw a dog trying to attack her. So now these people, they'll be afraid to walk in their own neighborhood. And I would like for the board to really address this problem, if you would. Also, right there going into Richmond Street and Sycamore Street, the school there, there's a fence there. It's grown up so bad on that fence.
Yes.
It's about to fall down. And I ride around and look at other neighborhoods, the schools and neighborhoods, the fences are clean. This one, nobody is paying any attention to, and it's getting larger and larger. It's about 3 or 4 feet away from the fence now, the growth. Thank you all for listening to me.
And yes, he's telling the truth. I never seen a fence look like that at a school. 52. Going right now.
Can I ask one question? I need addresses.
Excuse me.
May I have the address?
Mine is 87 Sycamore Street.
I have yours.
You got mine, okay.
Yes.
74 Union Street.
Okay.
36 Sycamore Street.
And that's where the overgrown grass is?
At the middle
Is that the middle school?
Middle school.
Sorry.
Middle school fence.
Middle school fence, got it.
That back field. Thank you very much.
Well, have you made any progress about that dog leash law?
We have not, no ma'am, not yet. Not to where we need to be. We're working on it.
How about the cats?
Cats are still a problem in the community in general.
Everywhere.
Everywhere, and we're getting to it. But there are a lot of cats in this community. So we are working on the cats.
I ain't got no cat, no dog. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for coming.
Yes, thank you.
Glad to hear from you. I guess that was Chambers, was that both Chamberses? Okay.
That's a different chambers. We know can't.
Rosa Chambers is the name that's on here, was that?
74 Union Street, Rosa Chambers.
Okay, so she's already spoke. Okay,
Yes,
she's already spoke, okay.
Yes, I already spoke.
Okay, Mr. Bricken.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say something positive. One of our family members had gotten COVID back in June, and we got a call from the health department. Christy, very professional, just gave us some suggestions. Didn't try to regulate or push us around.
Go to the microphone for me, Mr. Brick.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say something positive about the Anson County Health Department lady. When one of our family members had COVID back in June, that called, and she was very polite, not regulatory in any way, just offered some suggestions to us that we listened. And I don't know if she wants me to tell you this here, but we got the message on the machine at 9:20, and it said call anytime, and we called at 9:20. It looked like the person's cell phone, and she answered and talked to us for about 20 minutes. So I just thought to try to bring something nice up, and thank the Lord everybody was okay. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bricken, we appreciate that. Hope your family members doing well.
But her name was Christy, so.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, that brings us down to item 5, appointments to the Board of Health on page 71. And their Board of Health is asking to reappoint Mr. Lee Ainsworth for another 3-year term.
I make a motion that we do.
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Sturtevant, seconded by Commissioner Sims. Any discussion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Poses like sign. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay, next item is the manager's report. Mr. Monroe.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. This seems lengthy, so I'll try to keep it quick. The first item that I have up here is the Med Center Air. This is the helicopter hangar situation that took place back in November 2018. we have now signed, they've signed a lease with us to use the land, and they will be putting up their hangar within the next 6 months or so. That's the plan, at least. They have currently been using a local hangar right now to run flights out of the airport. So we will be making them a permanent home. They will be making themselves a permanent home on our property very soon. So they are here, they're conducting flights, and just give you up to date of what's taking place with that project. So we now have Atrium. Atrium will be here permanently very soon. I'm gonna move down. I'm gonna skip the DSS update and come back toward the end. Viper radio update. The Viper Tower last year was scheduled to go up outside the Emergency Services Center building down here off Country Club Road. The FAA came in back in June and told us that it would be a hazard to have it in that location in regards to the flight path for incoming airplanes from the south going into the airport. So we talked to the state DPS, the Department of Public Safety, and we found a new location for it, which would be the water tank out here in Wadesboro to put our Viper system on. And that has a very good potential for that to take place because it's structurally sound. Well, they're doing a structural analysis of it now, and when it's deemed to be structurally sound, the cost savings could allow us to also use that same model to go to the Burnsville water tower as well. That way getting 2 for 1, but that is still up in the air. But we're looking at the water tank right now. The reason why I bring that up is because the state has used their COVID dollars. The state had received COVID dollars to provide the funding for the Viper Tower system. And as such, we thought the same thing, that with the COVID dollars that we received from the federal government via the state, that we will buy our 800 megahertz radios to use the radios to make the tower operable. That's one of several things that's taking place over the next several months that will allow us to spend some of the COVID money in a very public forward-facing method. I bring that up because the next topic right here is CRF funds, the Corona Relief Funds. We are responsible for we're responsible for doling out or spreading out 25% of all the funds that we received. We received $1.1 million, and that's approximately $280,000 that needs to go to municipalities. We have recently received from all our municipalities, all 7 of them, spending plans that are in alignment with what can be spent on for the COVID emergency. One in particular, the town of Wadesboro, wants to do what we're doing, which is use those dollars for the purchase of 800 megahertz radios to improve the response and communications for their public safety infrastructure. So those are some of the big things taking place. We submitted those things on behalf of the municipalities today. They should be we should receive a second disbursement of those dollars pretty soon. So those things kind of roll together, the Viper update and the CRF funds, because the big chunk of our CRF funds, a big chunk, not the big chunk, a big chunk will be used to enhance our public safety communications. And next, I will discuss one other thing. If you have any questions, I apologize, I'm going kind of quickly.
Sorry, go right ahead.
The next thing I want to discuss, I'm going to jump down, it's not on the list, is the middle school project. Yesterday I met with the Anson County School Board, and I just came to speak to them, saying that I've met with the city, the new superintendent on 2 separate occasions. We're just working on building a relationship, trying to establish a rapport and a routine meeting, and that we had discussed, he and I privately, about what a middle school looked like in the future. And I told him, well, one would be significantly less expensive. And we talked about, in general, what it would take to get the conversations back started, and that they were willing to have conversations start back if the board of commissioners were willing to have that conversation start back. And if so, what does that look like? what does that look like for the county and the Board of Education to work together to get the school started, the school discussion started back. So I bring that back to you as something for you to meander and to talk about, because it is still out there, a project that we said we were going to do, and there is still some uncertainty that we can work through, So that's all my things that I'll speak on right now. There are two things.
Can I say something about the school, sir?
Yes, sir.
As you know, I'm very pro-school for many reasons. But the thing that I would have to have the school board bring back to us is we need a revised cost. We are not able, it is not reasonable, it is not feasible, it is not within the realm of possibilities across the state to have a $50-some million middle school.
Agreed. And that was something that the superintendent and I discussed, and the Board of Education heard that yesterday. I apologize for leaving that out. We have already come with a much more scaled down cost, and that's something that we, as the administrators, discussed. $30 to $35 million. $35 million at the absolute maximum walk-in, and it's good to go. No additions. But the low 30s to mid 30s is what we were looking at. And the superintendent has come across with some other ideas that could help reduce the cost. So there have been options on the table, and we're entertaining. I think the conversation starts now with those options versus being dictated to, and that's where we want to start. And the Board of Education seemed amenable to having a start over in the whole process.
Yeah, I think that's very appropriate that we do start those discussions and, you know, follow along the lines of the comments that Dr. Sim just made. But I think we do have to get moving with this thing, because we only got 5 years, and I think probably close to 2 of them's gone, if not more than 2's already gone. That $15 million that the county got for this project has to be spent within 5 years. I understand. There may be some things that I don't know about that, but that's what we were told up front.
That was a bit of misinformation. For 5 years, they would not receive their lottery funds for 5 years, because they pretty much get it all up front. That's where the $15 million comes from. But the school system was informed, I think at the end of last year, that they have more time to spend that out.
Okay, once again, you know, hopefully it's the consensus of the board that we do get back into some discussions about that project, because I think it is needed.
Okay.
It's got to be affordable.
Yes. Okay, and the next 2 items that I had, one is the audit letter. You've received the audit letter. I think everyone's received the audit letter, so I wanted to speak to that, and I'll have Mr. Kerry Garner do that.
Good evening, Vice Chair, board members. You at your seats, you'll have 2 response letters there. I'm assuming that everyone has received 2 letters from the LGC. I think I'm not sure how they chose, what method of delivery of the mail service that they chose, but I'm not sure that all of you received these letters at the same time. As a matter of fact, I think one board member may have just gotten one yesterday that was originally dated August the 12th. I'll be happy to address both of these. We've talked before about the original letter from August the 23rd that was in relation to the 2018 audit. You will see that, as you recall, there was some discrepancy, or we had to seek out some clarification in what they actually were requesting and what they were noting as their findings. Having gotten that, and again, the State Treasurer's Office, everyone's been working remotely since March, so it's been a little bit of a challenge to piece everything together. However, and the letter came from the Director of Fiscal Management, who actually was not the author of the letter. It was written on a cover of one of her staff members. So suffice to say that you will see in response on what started out as a May 27th letter, and it was again revised on the 11th of this month, that we address on the front page of that 2 of the findings that are the main problem is they want they want to confirm the plan that we submitted after 17 as to what we were doing fiscally, software-wise, staff-wise, responsibility-wise, what we were going to do to get our audits in on a more timely basis. So the bulk of the first page on the letter, again, I apologize because it's the second page in your, the second letter in your stapled section there. It's the third page. May the 27th original, August the 11th revised. Is everybody on that page?
Mm-hmm.
So if you skip the original, the first few paragraphs are addressing or reiterating what was in our 17 response, or response to the 17 audit, excuse me. So if you skip down to the last paragraph on the first page, it starts in regards to certain expenditures. So one of the findings was that the water fund, the budget was overspent, and what they really were referencing was the general fund, not the water fund. And it talked about debt, and it talks about General Statute 159.13b and how the board has to appropriate make the appropriate allocations for debt. What happened was, after the 18 audit and the adjusting journal entry to straighten out some of the things from the wild audit of 17, that the journal entry caused that to be overdrawn. It was not a physical check that was written. It was a adjusting journal entry that goes back to being related to 17. Having relayed that to the LGC, they were completely understanding of what would have caused that. I sent them the complete list of the adjusting journal entries. This just happened to be the only one that overspent an account. Again, it's not spending in terms of writing a check, it's spending in terms of a budget line item. All right, and then the second one was, the second finding of that year that was relevant is detailed on the last page of your packet. We had a capital project fund for the waste treatment plant. Now it was overspent by 3.29%. What happened as a budget amendment turned out to really be a revision of $80,000. Had that been the real amendment instead of the revision, then we'd have been well within by $15,000. Not taking into account that we should have gotten reimbursements from the Clean Water Fund. However, because of the legal issues that are associated with this project, we hadn't made any drawdowns. The drawdowns would have offset that. It would have even put us further under budget. Also, we got 2 invoices after the fiscal year that, to be responsible, we backed them into that prior year. After all of that, we still worked out to be $65,000 over. So we addressed it in what we thought was the right way to handle it, and they were fine with that. But again, it's in the letter. Any questions about that so far?
Good.
Okay. So then the most recent one, which would again be on the cover of what you're holding, is a response to, and I'm assuming everybody got this because it was dated the 12th, and Commissioner Smith and Streeter called me on Chairman Streeter called me on a day or so after the date of that. So I know that, and Commissioner Smith was the only one that had received it at that time. So again, we have 2 unit letters within a few months of one another because of completing 2 audits within a few months of one another. So a lot of the things in the 19 letter are repeated because they just repeated them in the 18 letter. So of the findings, if you focus on paragraph 3 that starts, as has been discussed, so the findings are identified on page 116 to 125. So there are 9 findings, 5 of which were corrected in the period during the audit. The 4 were repeats. So those are the 4 that we've addressed in our corrective action plan. Those 4, number 2019-1 and 3, are related to the tardiness of the audit. So realistically, if we just got 18 finished and we're getting 19 finished in a few months, it's going to be tardy because 18, because of all the problems with 17. So 2019-1 and 3, Both are related to the tardiness of the audit. Again, we agree with them, we don't disagree with them, we concur. Our existing action plan already addresses this. Our audits we are in compliance until January the 31st of 21 at this point. However, I want to talk about two other findings, 2019-2 and 7. So 2019-2, they again speak of overspending appropriations, okay? What that's referring to in economic development and education. So what that's referring to is the developer, Mr. Merrick, just addressed the sales tax dollars, the $524. We pass those dollars through to the school system, to South Piedmont, and to the Economic Development Group. However, we don't receive all of the money before June the 30th. So we have always backed that revenue into the prior year because that's the revenue it's for. Because we've dispersed that revenue, we've dispersed it as well. It is impossible to forecast forward of how much more money you will receive after June 30th. Before June 30th, you cannot forecast that. I don't have a crystal ball, but that's the way we've done it. So in this particular year, and it's happened in other years, in this particular year, that was a point of the audit. And so again, it's real dollars that we received after June 30 that we backed into the year, and then we dispersed it and backed that disbursement into the year. So from the expense and revenue that was actually budgeted, we exceeded both. We got more money in than we said we were going to get in, and we gave out more money than we said we were going to give out in lockstep. It was completely equal. However, it exceeded where we had budgeted. The only way to fix that, and what we've addressed in fixing that, is that we will cut things off on 6/30. If we receive money after 6/30 for a prior year, we will address it in the current year, and that's the only way that we really can do that. So again, if we had a budget of $100 and we'd already spent 90, and we received $20 more after June 30, then we're $10 over budget. All we can give is the 10 to get up to the $100. The extra 10 we will address in the current year, amend the current year budget because we're still in it from a prior year revenue. That's the only way we can do that and be in compliance. Any questions about that so far? All right, and then lastly, and I know this is boring to people that don't work in this, but 2019-7, this, when we have work done, and this is addressed at the airport, it is funded by NCDOT, Department of Aviation. So what happens is we have an airport consultant that we've always used. The airport consultant bids the contract, manages the vendors, submits the vendors' invoices for reimbursement. We receive the reimbursement at some point after that, and then we have a 3-day period to reimburse the vendors, whether it's on 100% funding or on a 90-10. Either way, we have 3 days. 3 days logistically do not allow reasonably for you to turn an invoice around from the time that you receive it. So what we have done, and we had one violation of that. So we paid one, I think it was 5 days or so. So what we've done now is with some of the changes that we've made in the staffing and finance office that were approved by the board as part of our action plan, we've set up a redundancy so that more than one person is aware of when this money comes to us, because it comes electronically, it comes to our capital management trust, so that more than one person is available, or notified rather, of when it comes, so that we can process any existing invoice that may be there. And with our new system, which we implemented on July the 1st, we have always had accounts payable runs every day, but we are much more nimble in how we process payments in terms of paper checks now. And that's been going well, knock on wood. We've got 2 months under our belt. We've got a lot more to grow into with that program. But anyway, that's addressed. Again, it was a violation. Did we break the 3 days? Absolutely we did. Is it reasonable? No, I don't think 3 days is reasonable, but we do have a plan in place. You shouldn't have that happen again. However, I do address in here that it probably happened once in early 2020. So the year that we just finished, you know, back in July, August, September of last calendar year, but the operating year that we just finished, we probably have a 3-day violation there. So we'll probably see that again. But aside from that, those are our corrective action plans, and they are asking for the board to all execute these if you're in agreement with these, and I'll take any other questions that you might have related to that.
No, I don't have any other questions. I think you covered it very well. Every aspect of the letter that came from Local Government Commission, and I appreciate that. And I kind of realized when I read part of that letter that it was a timing issue, but what jumped out at me is they were saying a lot of things were repeating, which I guess that would be just because of the fact that the two audits were completed so close together.
That is correct. That is correct. And we tried to address that in the response here. We are in constant contact with, or I am,
yes,
with staff, with Sharon, and it's not just her, but her assistant director, Susan McCullen, the DEP folks or whatnot. So we're not out on an island. They're aware of what we're doing, but procedurally they generate these, what I call form letters, but you'll see that they're very similar. And if you looked at the one from 17 and the one from 16 and the one from 15, they are very similar letters.
Okay, all right.
But Mr. Garner, you say now in a few months, we'll be finished with 19.
No, we're done.
We are done with 19?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So
we've been done.
We are working on 20.
That's correct.
We're up to date with all the audits. This is just a holdover. These are just holdover notifications.
Thank you.
Yep. So yeah, we are our next due date is January 31st of 21 for 20.
Yeah, good job. We appreciate your hard work and everybody that was involved in it to get us current. And based on this letter, we'll be back in good standing. I guess the one other thing, I pointed this out to Mr. Monroe, is kind of just a side note, but it looks like they're behind too because they still have Ms. Garner's name on there as the county manager.
We discussed that earlier as well.
Considerably.
And it's not like, I promise you, it's not because they haven't talked to him as well.
Oh, I understand.
So that's the next point. Does anyone have any more questions with that? And is it appropriate to?
Yeah, I was going to segue with the LGC. Go ahead.
But I mean, is it appropriate to take board action to execute the response?
Oh, okay, so
Yes.
At this time, we will entertain a motion to approve the response to the Local Government Commission.
I make a motion.
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Sturman, seconded by Commissioner Gatewood to approve the response to the Local Government Commission. Any discussion? All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Garner.
Thank you, sir. Right.
Okay, so now we'll discuss the DSS update. So we had executed the lease the last time we met, and we sent it out to the respective state agencies for approval: DHHS, NCDHHS, and LGC, which Carrie is going to talk about in a second. In response to DHHS, and Ms. Lula Jackson's here in the audience can back me up if I said anything out of sorts. They said that we didn't need to have their approval, but we need to get one from the federal grantor. So state-wise, we're good to go there. We'll be sending this on up as far as we need to make sure we get the appropriate approvals from the DHHS side. The local government side, however, Local Government Commission has a small little thing that we need to jump through, and Carrie will bring you up to date on that.
So basically what Mr. Monroe is alluding to is that anytime that we borrow money that is longer than 59 months or exceeds a certain value in terms of longer than 59 months or exceeds a value, or a lease that exceeds a value or length of term, then the Local Government Commission, you have to appear before them and you have to have their blessing to be able to execute that. So what we've done is we have presented to Ms. Edmondson what our plans are, or what we were considering as a solution for the Department of Social Services building. So she's referred us to their property management section and their debt section, which is basically what we're trying to do, is get any questions answered before we get on their agenda. So had several phone calls with them. We had a conference call Thursday of last week, Thursday morning, and so basically we missed the September meeting. They're the first Tuesday of the month, so it just happened to be today. Our goal is to be on the October agenda, and again, that's just to present our plan and seek their approval. One of the contingencies, or one of the items from the lease, is that we had to have LGC approval, which we knew we'd have to go forward, and then also the DHHS, which is the funding source. So as part of being on the October agenda, there's a rather lengthy application. It's about 26 pages, most of which will not apply to this project because it doesn't involve debt, and it doesn't involve utilities, so it doesn't involve water rates and things of that nature. So it takes a lot of it cuts a lot of the pages down. However, there is an attorney opinion that we'll need to get to Mr. Forbes, and we will need the board to take some action on take a board resolution for our presentation, and we're hoping to bring that back to you sometime this month. But again, that's where we're at. That's a procedural step to get on the I think it's the October the 4th, 6th, that first Tuesday, to get on their meeting schedule.
The reason why this is necessary is, again, the LGC approves these long-term arrangements, financial arrangements. They're going to need a resolution, essentially a draft resolution from the board that you are in support of this measure that we're taking. And again, we're not taking out debt. They just want to make sure that what the plan of length that we have with this lease, that we're physically able to sustain it. So that's their concern, and that is concern for any jurisdiction in North Carolina will have to go through this process. So that's our recommendation, that upon the evening, when we complete the evening, that we recess until the 15th to come back and have a resolution for you. We'll get it to you by the end of next week, I believe we were talking about. The 11th. And just so you can sign off on it, you can read it, sign off on it, and hopefully vote to move us forward, because someone would need to be at the LGC October 6th to kind of plead our case, which again is the same day as we would normally have our meeting. So we will assign someone to get up there to go take care of that while we'll be conducting our meeting as normal.
So it'll be September the 15th at 10 a.m.
It's on
It's a Tuesday. I'm sorry. September 15th is a Tuesday.
Yes, sir. At 10 a.m. in the morning.
September 15th at 10 a.m.
What's happening?
It's on a Tuesday. The resolution that Mr. Monroe was talking about, that the LGC needs for DSS, it's got to get put together. Then we've got, as a board, has to approve it, and they're suggesting that we do that. We recess and come back on Tuesday the 15th at 10 a.m. Yeah.
What about Tuesday?
Okay, is everybody good with the Tuesday, September the 15th, 10 a.m.?
So, and as Mr. Monroe alluded to, you will have what we're asking you to consider. It'll go out on Friday the 11th or Thursday the 10th, but probably Friday the 11th.
Who
So you'll have
will
the
go
weekend
in
for it.
October to speak for us?
We have not.
Crip. You and Crip.
No. Well, I don't want to miss the meeting here, but
we need a positive person to go up there.
well, I don't know about that.
Yes, we do.
We haven't talked about it, but someone from finance, I assume, will be going on in our stead.
have you finished your manager's report?
One more thing, and it was real quick. It was the land sale progress of the Agriculture Civic Center.
Yes.
That's already formally.
Good job, Mr. Garner, good job.
That paperwork is in the works, getting the deed transferred over. I have not heard from the other attorney. I called, last week, have not heard back from them. I expect a call sometime this week about that to get that finalized.
And that's all I had.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, as everybody know, my daughter is one of the, architects with Atrium, with a company that builds all the urgent care centers and everything. Whenever they was building the hospital, I stepped down from any of the votes because I didn't want it to be a conflict. She may be heading this project with the, I hear about the airport. And if it happens, if her name is on there, I will, so it won't be a conflict.
Understand. Thank you, Commissioner Sturman, for making us aware of that.
I have one.
Okay, Dr. Sims.
Ms. Monroe, I have a question for you. Who is in charge of the contractors who mow the sides of the rural roads?
I'm sorry, of the.
Mow the sides of the rural roads, contractors. I know the state contracts it out now. But who's in charge of the whole thing?
I don't have a name. We locally, what we've done as a county is gone out with a group called Dixie Lawn Care, and we've been working with them for the last 5 months to go and pick up trash, but we haven't done any mowing, so I don't know who the mowers are for the state.
What would be the organization that would be?
NCDOT, Division 10.
NCDOT?
The Department of Transportation, Division 10, and.
Dr. Sims, I have that name, but I'd like to give it to you outside the meeting if you don't mind.
If this guy's put it on my desk, I'm gonna put it back on his desk.
Okay. No problem.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, the next slide is the chairman report, so I'm just gonna do a couple things, take one and pass it around. And, two things. I did attend the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners conference, which was virtual. It went well. New offices were installed. One other thing that came out of it that we were reminded of is the Legislative Goals Conference, which will take place in January. But prior to that, any county that has anything they'd like to have considered has to have it in this month, because the Legislative Goals Committee will meet, I think, either once or twice between now and the end of the year to review it and decide whether or not it makes the cutoff, and then forward it to the conference, which will be held in January. And the other thing, what I've just passed out, Central Carolina Council of Governments is now Central Carolina Regional Council, and that information talks about the rebranding and the new marketing approach. It also talks about the business plan, FY21. And one other thing that I think is going to be a real plus is they've taken the staff and assigned them at the 9 counties in the region. They've assigned Central Carolina liaisons, and our liaison is Miss Emily Parker, which she's actually helping us with the land use plan anyway. And that way we'll have much more of an opportunity, the counties, the municipalities, and in Anson County that members of Central Carolina will have somebody they can interact with, because I'm trying to get it down here so we can go around and talk to everyone. Okay, that's all I have, and that brings us down to Commissioner concerns, petitions, announcements, and comments. Anybody have anything? Okay, hearing none, do we actually have a closed session?
Just real briefly, yes, sir.
Okay, we have a closed session for personnel according to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, parentheses A, parentheses 6, to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, condition of appointment of a public officer or employee or prospective public officer employee. So at this time, we need a motion to go into closed session. And we thank everybody for coming.
I make a motion that we go into closed session.
Second.
Okay, we have a, motion from Commissioner Sturman, seconded by Commissioner Gatewood and Commissioner Sims. Go into closed session. All in favor, let me know by saying aye.